Uh-oh. Okay, we'll start with this. News broke earlier today that most valuable promotions will be heading north of the border to Canada, where Lucas Badie will be headlining. An amateur standout, Canadian Olympian Tammara Thibeault will be returning to action for what will be her second professional fight. Sarah Bailey, WBA light flyweight champion Sarah Bailey, will be making an appearance on the show. No idea here and now if she's got some kind of arrangement with most valuable promotions, though it wouldn't surprise me. She'll be squaring off against an opponent that has yet to be announced. We know a little bit more about Tammara's fight and who she's going to be fighting. She's going to be facing seasoned journeywoman Sonia Dreiling. Sonia Dreiling, who sports a professional record of 6 wins with 7 losses, no draws, 2 knockouts, having been knocked out 2 times in 13 professional bouts. Last in action in October of last year opposite the ring, Melody Propovac, who won a unanimous decision against Sonia, who's coming off of 4 straight losses, 2 of which were knockout losses. She's about to suffer another one to Tammara Thibeault. I don't like to get overly excited about these amateur standouts and these blue chip prospects. I like to see them develop before I formulate an opinion on them, but Tammara is one of those special fighters to where, upon laying eyes on her, you know she's going to be a champion. You know this kid's going to go all the way. Fresh on the heels of her professional debut last month against seasoned veteran Natasha Spence, who Tammara came very close to knocking out. There were moments there where you saw she's got power. She can whack. Tammara can punch. Standing in at approximately 5'10" in the women's middleweight division, looks more like an even 6 feet tall. She's big, with a big punch and big skills to boot. I was thoroughly impressed with her professional debut. All she didn't do was knock out Natasha Spence, though she came close. I think she's going to seal the deal with Sonia Dreiling. Tammy's going to knock her out in what will be her second fight as a professional and her first recorded knockout if she does knock Sonia out. Scheduled for 6 rounds in the women's middleweight division. Currently, there are 2 reigning champions in the women's middleweight division. It's Clarissa Shields and Desley Robinson. Clarissa's got the WBA and WBC titles, and Desley has the IBF. The WBO title is currently registered as being vacant. Clarissa's going to be in action this weekend all the way up there at heavyweight for the inaugural undisputed heavyweight crown. And I don't know how much longer she's going to be hanging on to those WBA and WBC titles. It's conceivable that in the not-so-distant future, she may vacate them. We'll see. Then you have Desley, who became IBF champion last month in December. I'm so confident in Tammara Thibeault's abilities that I would pick her to beat Desley Robinson right now. Take that blue belt from her, and of course, there is that vacant WBO title. But the problem with picking up alphabet titles at this very early stage in Tammara's career is the sooner you pick them up, the sooner you have mandatories, and the sooner you're expected to unify, with the only other champion at this weight being Clarissa Shields. I'm high on Tammara, but she is so obviously not ready for a fight with Clarissa. So for the time being, she shouldn't look at those alphabet titles. She literally went pro just last month and had her first fight, and she's only now about to have her second. It's going to be a while before she's ready for a fight with somebody like Clarissa. So for the time being, it's just about gaining experience, getting some rounds in the bank, time under the hot lights. Tammara needs time time to develop. I hope to see her in action 3 to 4 times this year, as is customary for a boxer just starting out. It's not uncommon that they might fight 3, 4, maybe even 5 times in a single calendar year. My recommendation for this fighter is stay away from those alphabet titles, at least momentarily. You don't need one right now. Let this division sort itself out to where a new crop of champions sprout while she develops, then she can go after them. Doesn't need a belt right now. So I'm looking forward to the ring return of Tammara Thibeault in March. Look for that on DAZN. In men's junior middleweight news, veteran promoter Tom Loeffler teases its super welterweight tournament involving Sebastian Fundora and Sergey Bohachuk. A blockbuster tournament featuring Sebastian Fundora, Sergey Bohachuk, Bakram Murtazaliev, and the winner of Virgil Ortiz versus Israel Madrimov could soon be in the works, says promoter Tom Loeffler. The super welterweight division is shining brighter than ever, as 3 formidable champions hope to resume their supremacy over a pack of fearsome contenders. With that in mind, there is perhaps no better time to stage a monumental 4-man tournament pitting the elite operators at 154 against each other. WBA champion Terence Crawford, of course, is unlikely to be involved, with the 4-weight, 2-time undisputed champion looking to face super middleweight king Canelo Alvarez. But still, the names that have been floated by Loeffler, who promotes Bohachuk 25-2 with 24 KOs, would certainly make for a series of compelling matchups. Before talks can commence, unified champion Sebastian Fundora must first take care of business in his next assignment, slated for March 22nd against Chordale Booker. Ortiz and Madrimov, meanwhile, will square off on February 22nd, while IBF champion Bakram Murtazaliev and Bohachuk are yet to announce their next outings. As this year progresses, though, a potential 4-man tournament could become more realistic, with Loeffler having pitched the idea to UFC president Dana White. The boss of MMA's flagship promotion has already dipped his toe into the world of boxing, working closely with Loeffler on his UFC Fight Pass events under the 360 Promotions banner. But now, Loeffler can only see White entering his involvement in boxing alongside Turki El Sheikh, the chairman of the General Entertainment Authority in Saudi. Because it's such a great division and such a deep division, there's talks of potentially doing a super middleweight tournament, Loeffler told Boxing News. That would be a tremendous 4-man tournament, and we'll see if it gets traction over there with El Sheikh. There's been no official talks yet, but I've mentioned it to Dana White, who thinks it's a great idea. With Bohachuk and the other fighters in that division, I think they're willing to fight each other, and especially with the economics now coming out of Saudi, I think the 4-man tournament could definitely happen. So don't get your hopes up prematurely, folks. This is all theoretical. This is just an idea that Tom has floated to Dana. No official talks for a tournament have actually taken place. In previous videos, I've talked about the need for a tournament in some of these divisions with some of these lesser-known fighters and champions to bring some excitement to those weight classes, like, say, the featherweight division, the super featherweight division, super lightweight, or super welter, otherwise known as junior middle. Today's junior middleweight division is many times deeper than the middleweight division. The middleweight division, often regarded as one of the glamour weights, at least historically, not so glamorous these days, but junior middle, man alive, that's a deep ocean, a deep division. One of the deepest in all of boxing, to where you really wouldn't have to limit a tournament to just being a 4-man tournament. The junior middleweight division is deep enough that you could go as far as making an 8-man tournament. Sebastian Fundora, Sergey Bohachuk, Jesus Ramos, Charles Conwell, Jermel Charlo, Tim Kazoo, the winner of Madrimov versus Ortiz, Bakram Murtazaliev, and that's not all. That's not even everything the junior middleweight division has to offer. There's guys like Josh Kelly, Xander Zayas. It's a deep division, but the problem with this entire scenario, whether it's an 8-man tournament or as little as a 4-man tournament, is that it is a logistics nightmare for the event coordinators, relying on the principle that all the participants will be available, barring illness, injury, or unforeseen circumstances. Hey, you all remember the World Boxing Super Series that was put together by Kale and Nisei Sauerland. It was fun while it lasted. That was their baby. But it did face a number of issues, financial issues. Not all of the super middleweight champions participated in the tournament. In fact, it was only one, just one, George Groves. At super lightweight, all 4 titles weren't on the line in the tournament. It was just two alphabet titles. The WBA and WBC titles. Not all the champions in that division participated either. Now, they did have more luck at cruiserweight. All the cruiserweight champions participated, but that's mostly because none of them were with a major promotional outfit. So you fast forward a couple of years and you look across that junior middleweight landscape, you could probably get Bakram Murtazaliev to participate in a tournament. You probably could, but I don't think you'll have that same luck with Sebastian Fundora. I don't think for a second that Samson Lukowicz would allow him to fight in a tournament. In a free-for-all? No way. That's not the way he does business. It's not the way he does things. Why do you think they wasted all that time waiting on an Errol Spence Jr. fight just for it not to happen? They were looking for the low-hanging fruit. Lost a lot of time in the process, but that's what they're all about. Now that he's got 2 alphabet titles, Samson is going to tread carefully for as long as he has them, and he may not have them that much longer because sooner or later mandatories are going to get called and Sebastian will be forced to comply. So while Tom Loeffler might have pitched this idea to Dana White, and Dana White might have thought it was a good idea, and even I think it's a good idea, it's not realistic. The road to a dead end is littered with good ideas, great ones in the sport of boxing. In a very general sense, tournaments, putting them together in pro boxing can be a logistics nightmare, a real headache, because they rely on the participation and availability of the combatants, and that's providing it's all smooth sailing. Tack on the politics and it gets even harder to do. So, I like Tom's idea, but being honest, I'm not holding my breath. Wasn't it just a few months ago that Lou Dembella came up with an idea for an 8-woman tournament that would have featured all of the combatants, all of the champions at 118, and the top contenders? But in the end, I told you that wasn't going to happen, and I don't think this will either. Great idea, but not realistic. Finally, ahead of this weekend's mega match, David Benavidez is ready for a cruiserweight run, saying, "I'd be a completely different animal." Gee, I wonder what makes him say that. Did he have a hard time getting down to 175 pounds just 2 fights into his light heavyweight campaign? David Benavidez is carving a credible career for himself in recent years, despite not landing the much-desired clash against Canelo. The former 2-time WBC super middleweight crown holder, Benavidez, will next take on David Morrell in a light heavyweight fight this Saturday, headlining a Prime Video pay-per-view event at the T-Mobile Arena in Vegas. Over the last 22 months, Benavidez has beaten former super middleweight champion Caleb Plant, stopped then unbeaten former middleweight champion Demetrius Andrade, and scored a unanimous decision over former champion Alexander Vajdik. The winner of Benavidez and Morrell will have a stronghold for the shot at the undisputed light heavyweight title once a victor emerges in the rematch between current champion Artur Beterbiev and challenger Dmitry Bivol. But Benavidez, a 190 betting favorite according to DraftKings, has even bigger plans should they materialize. Yeah, definitely, cruiserweight is on my radar, and I would love to compete at that weight, Benavidez told The Ring. I don't even think I would have to cut any weight. Actually, I would probably have to gain some weight. I would be a completely different animal at cruiser. Yeah, he'd still have to cut weight. He would still have to lose a few pounds, because I remember when he was doing the rounds on the podcasts and he spoke to Henry Cejudo and Kamaru Usman. He told them that he walks around at 2 and change. You can just look at him and see that in between fights, this guy's walking around anywhere in between 200 to 220 pounds. Unlike his relationship with Alvarez, Benavidez is taking a more respectful road to a potential clash against WBA and WBO cruiserweight champion Gilberto Ramirez, following his fellow Mexican's career-best win over Chris Billum-Smith back in November. I'm proud of Zurdo, and I want to congratulate him. He is a very good fighter, said Benavidez. If the Canelo fight manifests itself later
Jesus Christ, I thought he said he moved on from this.
and happens, I'm gonna be 100% ready for it when it comes. I'm fighting the best of the best. I'm not talking anymore. I'm letting the track record speak for itself. Benavidez also envisions bouncing back and forth between divisions should the right fights become available against other top dogs, such as the Ring and IBF Cruiserweight champion Jayo Pataya. I think so, that I would fight in both divisions, but for now, I want to keep my eyes on the prize at February 1st, said Benavidez. I have a tough fight in front of me, but I feel that I can come down from cruiserweight to light heavy. If it's God's plan, then we're going to go for it. I think that if the day comes when David finally moves up to cruiser, he ain't coming back down. Look at him now. His eyes are sunken in. His cheeks are sunken in. They're more pronounced. It looks to me like he had a hard time getting down to 175. So if the day comes when he moves up to cruiser, he's not going to put his body through that again. In fact, that's why he's talking about cruiserweight now.
Just 2 fights into his light heavyweight campaign.
Him and his father have been sowing the seeds for a potential move to cruiserweight since last year. He claims that he would be a different animal as a cruiserweight. I don't actually believe that. I don't think much about him would change aside from what the scale says.
He fights the same way at 175 that he did at 168.
Though he would have a harder time doing that as a cruiserweight, where the men are naturally bigger and acclimated to the weight. If you think you're just going to barrel forward, crowding them, letting go of those shoe shines, shoulders square, standing right in front of them, you're in for a rude awakening. He's targeting Zurdo.
But he's got to get past David Morrell first.
David Morrell, who said, "We have everything we need in front of us. This will be the springboard to bigger and better things." If by some chance David Morrell proves the odds makers wrong, and he wins this weekend, I could see David Morrell fighting the winner of Better Beef versus Bivol.
I don't hear David Morrell toying with the idea of moving up to cruiser anytime in the near future like David Benavidez is doing.
I ain't heard David Morrell mention moving up the cruiser once, whereas with David Benavidez, the closer the fight date has gotten, the more mentions you hear about that and about Zurdo.
He's gonna be a different animal at cruiser. That's what he says.
David's fans wonder why I keep saying he's not fighting the winner of Better Beef versus Bivol. Under no circumstances do I expect that fight to see the light of day, because this guy already knows where he's going after this. Win or lose.
If he wins, he's not sticking around. He's moving up to cruiser. And if he loses, he's still moving up to cruiser.
In that scenario, he would definitely move up to cruiser. If he suffered his first professional loss, that takes him out of the running for a Better Beef versus Bivol fight, not that he intended to have it, and there'd be no reason to stick around or subject his body to a hard cut. And if it was a hard cut, you have to wonder what effect that's going to have on David Benavidez's punch resistance, as David Morrell's best bet to win this thing is to get him out of there in the first half before the later rounds roll around where he's not used to going.
I don't think the guy's been the distance but 2 times.
He has to use David Benavidez's come-forward aggression against him to walk him into hard punches while keeping distance and staying outside of David's sweet spot, which is mid-range to inside. Though if you've been keeping up with my coverage of this weekend's fight, you'll know that I'm not going with David Morrell. I'm going with David Benavidez because I just can't trust a guy who only has 11 professional fights. You have to earn my trust. And at only 11-0, you haven't done that yet.